June 26, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Great. Moving on to public comment. Seeing none, we will go right into reports and discussion. And the first item on our reports and discussion is the draft agenda for our July 24th Monomoy Regional School Committee workshop. Dr. Carpenter?
Sure. There's in the packet. There's a draft agenda that has draft on it. I did get some suggestions from Ryan that I've incorporated into this, but the suggestion that I have is that we have sort of an overarching talking point, which is just to help make sure that everybody on the school committee, and we've had a number of new folks join us, and we haven't really, I think, gotten into the nuts and bolts of what's behind the regional agreement for years. So it's just a little bit on really looking at our regional agreement and understanding it, understanding the different pieces that go into that. Things like foundation enrollment, local effort, foundation budgets, municipal growth factors, required local contribution, just the things behind the Chapter 70 formula that dictate some of the numbers that ultimately lead to what our assessments are. And there was also a want to just understand the why the region came together back then initially, and why the regional agreement was changed back in 2022. The second big topic to go over is really to understand the current and future impacts of shifting demographics since regionalization, and then looking forward, particularly looking at our elementary demographics, because our elementary demographics today are going to become our middle school and high school demographics tomorrow. So we've been together, fully regionalized now for 12 years, and a lot has changed in 12 years. So you can imagine the demographics that we're seeing in kindergarten right now are going to be 12 years, 12 years out. So we can just kind of sort of anticipate what those shifts are going to look like and how that might impact needs that our community has, and how that might impact our budget. I also think it would be really good for us to revisit some of the pre-K conversations that happened over the past year. Clearly, there was some angst about preschool, and one of the things that I'd like the school committee to think boldly about is, I think behind some of the angst is really a want in the town for something that is really a high quality pre-K that's available to families. And there's clearly not enough opportunities in our two towns, and there are some communities that have shifted towards universal pre-K. Provincetown, Truro have looked at it, Mashpee's looked at it. So there are some places on the Cape that have gone there. And again, this is something that a school committee could look at, think about, and again, it's thinking about in the summer times a good time to start the conversations, because if you do decide to go in a direction, you need to ultimately budget for it, and this is the time of year to be thinking about bold things, even if it's not in the upcoming fiscal year, but to think about strategically if you'd want to go that direction. And the next two things are really to look at the capital needs for our secondary schools, the middle school and the high school. So we know that there's middle school project going on, but we also know that there's going to be some big needs here at the high school. And then the last thing is to look at our 2 elementary schools. And, Chatham Elementary School had its last renovation was right around the time, that our middle school had it. So, so we know if we're replacing siding and a roof on our middle school, siding the roof is going to need to happen in Chatham. We know that we have boilers that are going to need to be replaced at Harwich Elementary School. And as Michael and I will share with the committee, the state seems to be going in a very different direction on what they want to see in terms of HVAC in schools looking forward. And it's not old school boilers, and there's significant cost involved with that. And I think it would be, again, worth sort of understanding what those replacement costs are, and what might be more fiscally advantageous to the school district and to our taxpayers. So those are sort of like some of the topics. And then the last topic I had on here is to really think about how we can best engage our select boards and our taxpayers. And I know that's going to be a lot to go and try to fit into a workshop, but I'm sure Meredith will keep us on track.
Any questions, comments?
It's a robust agenda, I like it.
We did talk about it being so robust, and that if, we get to the wee hours and we feel like we need to continue it at a different meeting, we could do that. Because we don't have our school committee goals on here, which is what we typically use the workshop time for, in addition to, learning more about things. But, so I think we have to think about that for a second meeting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we don't finish, we can do it with, a
Yeah.
lot of these are obviously going to become probably in some way weave into our goals.
Connect,
so
yeah.
A second goal workshop.
Right. Like, I feel this is
Yeah.
important information for us, especially with new members of the committee, but I do feel like there's going to have to be a follow-up. Anything else? All right. Moving right along to the first reading of multiple policies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are some revisions of some that we spoke a couple weeks ago. The first one, which is sexual harassment prevention policy. And what we have done, as you'll see, is we've taken, the question was before, with the term of unlawful sexual harassment. So we have taken that out as a term, but we've used the word unlawful in proper places. So it's really kind of saying that sexual harassment is unlawful, but it's referring to sexual harassment, not unlawful sexual harassment. Any questions? Again, this is just first reading. Okay. The second one is the issue of school committee member resignation, and there were a couple issues here. One was, it just seemed a little ambiguous or nebulous in terms of when the, in terms of when is the person resign, when they leave or when they send the note. So this has been rewritten, and everybody has this copy that's been provided to you?
Oh, this one.
Yes. So again, let me just read this now. Once a school committee member submits a letter of resignation to the town clerk of the town he or she represents, said individual's duties as a committee member are terminated as of the date noted in the resignation letter. So we feel, we just had a subcommittee meeting before this. We felt that makes it very clear that, resign, send the note, and it's as of the date of the resignation letter. The second part of the question was this last paragraph, in terms of somebody leaves the towns of either Chatham or Harwich, they have to leave the committee. And we still think that that's valid. If you move, you should be out. I think one of the examples that was given last time, I think, Stephen, you gave that somebody years ago had been here and then had a second residence in Florida, and and then didn't come to the meetings. What we think and what we recommended for the next policy committee when we start in September is to address it and have the subcommittee take a look at a potential attendance policy. that is really the issue. It's not so much that if somebody is, leaving and has 2 residences, but if they're not coming to the meetings anymore, then that really is the heart of the issue. So anyways, we recommend that stays the same, but that the follow-up, the next group of the subcommittee considers an attendance policy. So, Jack?
Yeah, Brad, thank you. I just have one question. So what you're saying is we're going to come up with an attendance policy for the school committee, possibly? Potentially,
yeah, to consider it.
This still, and I think Steve and I were talking about the same thing, in that what happened was that person moved out of town, and although this says it's deemed it was vacated, we didn't know, can we now go about getting a new person? Because they never actually resigned.
Right.
So is this strong enough to, if we went to legal, would they say this is enough for us to proceed with the select board going forward with allowing us to start that process again? Because that was what the problem was, and we just we had no power, we couldn't do anything. So as long as, legally, if that's all we need, then that's fantastic.
I think
that's all we need.
Yeah.
Great.
I think the
Perfect.
next thing, though, again, what we recommend is for the next group to take a look, is it's the attendance. If theoretically, if somebody wanted to fly back from Florida or Connecticut or whatever to be able to be at the meetings, they're at the meetings. But again, if you're not a resident of these towns anymore, you have to be out. But I think for consideration, attendance policy. So,
Perfect.
Any other questions on that? Okay. And this third one.
Excuse me, Brad, are we all okay to bring this back as a second reading, even with just the rewording?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And the third one here, which is a school committee vacancy, and this has been rewritten to make it much more clear in terms of what happens if there's a vacancy that is created, and that the selectmen will meet with the school committee, and that is the process of how that would be filled.
Yeah, it's usually at the selectmen's meeting. It's not at a school committee meeting.
Correct.
So you're saying this should be, in joint session, would that imply, though, at a, so you're saying this has to be at a select board meeting?
Well, it generally is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Does it have to state that in the policy?
Yeah, I think it's fine as
As
written.
written, I think it is.
Yeah, but
I mean, a joint session is you could have, it seems to me, you have the school committee at,
Select board.
as part of the select board meeting, so. Any other questions? Jackie?
I don't know that I have a question. Something's coming to me about one of the times that we met, I want to say it was Chatham, and it was surrounding whether we could or couldn't comment because it was technically a selectmen's meeting, or select board's meeting, and we weren't sure if we could or couldn't comment. Mary's shaking her head, she remembers what I'm thinking, but do you remember something too?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually, we meet with them and it's a joint session first.
Correct.
And then the selectmen end that meeting and start their own. So it's a combined meeting.
But it was something, it was something about permitting us to speak
During the interview.
during the interview, yes.
But I think that would be the next step. That would be that might be in the select
That
board.
was, yeah, maybe not necessarily part of this policy, but
But that is a question.
okay, thank you. That's where it was going, and so you're right, it's not in this policy.
People did ask me questions. You guys asked me questions.
Yeah, but there was a lot of behind-the-door questions
Gotcha.
about that. But it's been going on,
Yeah.
so we'll figure it out.
I really think that, it either needs to also be addressed in some sort of select board packet, or at least the chair and vice chair reaching out to the select board and clarifying, emphasizing that it is joint, so a joint meeting, you all have a voice at the table. It's not just
Right.
a select board
Correct.
meeting.
One would
And this is the wording in red, right from our regional agreement. So,
Yeah.
but I think Brad and I would both be happy to reach out to our select boards.
Absolutely. Any other questions on this? Okay. All right.
So they'll come back for a second reading. All right, next on our agenda is the Monomoy All Sports Booster Club recognition.
So just in your packet, I just wanted to share a letter with the committee that acknowledges just the support that our athletics program gets from the boosters. And this has been going on for years, and I don't think we pause often enough to really sort of acknowledge and thank them for their contribution. On the back pages are the $16,321.60 in the past year that they have given in contributions to support our student athletes and our programs, above and beyond just their presence, their presence at games and just supporting our interscholastic competition. So I, again, just want to share with the committee and have you sort of see and understand what that All Sports Boosters program does behind the scenes. And I know a number on the committee have been involved with the boosters for quite some time, too.
Any questions? All right, moving right along to prior year encumbrances vote.
Good evening, school committee. Michael McMillan, school business manager. I just have a couple of items on the agenda today that are about sort of end of fiscal year tidy up. The first one is our prior year encumbrances. So that's just where we have outstanding bills to pay, normally where we've had work, we've been getting HVAC services right up until June 30th. So on some occasions, we've not received the invoice yet. And, we try and get as many of them done as we can before tonight. But these are the last vouchers of FY25. And after today, everything's FY26. So in order for us to be able to continue to pay those invoices out of FY25 funds, it requires a vote of the school committee, and then we'll be able to continue paying them. So this year we have, I've listed all the purchase orders that we have outstanding that are in the general fund, and those are the ones that are up for approval, and it's $82,063.54 total cost.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Ms. Gregg?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the general fund fiscal year 25 encumbrances of $82,063.54 to be paid during fiscal year 26.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Thank you very much. So, and the next item is the transportation reimbursement funds that we receive from the state. So during the budget process, we estimate what those funds are going to be, but they are often changed by the state later in the process. And any delta between those, what we budgeted and what we actually receive in the year, can be used to offset future assessments budgets. We just require a vote of the school committee to do that. So this year, we had budgeted some $134,000 less than we ended up actually receiving. So that's good in that those funds will be available to offset the FY27 budget, subject to your approval.
We have a motion? Ms. Seibert-Long?
I move to approve an offset of $134,044 to be applied to the FY27 transportation portion of the assessment.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda are the subcommittee assignments. So Brad and I talked about it, and we did the best and tried to honor as many of the first choices as possible. I know there are some on here that probably weren't your first choice or even on your list, but if we just take a look at this, and if there's any major issues, we could shift things around if needed.
The only question I had is that you guys added the, well, first of all, your email correspondence about kind of what your updates were was fantastic. So you added the superintendent search. Durr. Don't know why we didn't pick up on that. But, because I know we've already had an executive session for part of that process. And then my second question was, I would be interested in being on that if there's the opportunity. However, obviously my time constraints are only if the meetings are, not inside work hours. And I know in the past, sometimes some of the meetings do fall during the workday. So if that's the case, then absolutely it's not something I would be able to do, but I would be interested if needed.
All right, great. Any other questions, comments? Okay, excellent. Next on the agenda is something that was added today. It's the annual submission of school resource officers and mental, social, and emotional health support personnel data. I feel like because it was not in our packet, it's something that we should not discuss tonight. However, because it was in our packet, now you have the information, and I'm hoping that we are all okay with, at the beginning of our workshop on the 24th, if we can start it as a regular meeting, so this can be an agenda item, because it has a deadline. So if you guys are all okay with it, you have the information to review now, and on the 24th, we will begin our workshop as a regular meeting, and then adjourn to workshop with this on the agenda.
Right.
Is that okay, Dr. Carpenter?
I think in some ways, just the fact that you have it as a school committee sort of checks the box, but it's a sort of new legislation that sort of requires that we annually report to DESE, but we're also supposed to annually report to the school committee.
Right.
And we can do a 1-minute verbal report at the beginning of the workshop.
Perfect. Excellent. All right, so moving right along to subcommittee representative and liaison reports, and we'll start with the building committee update.
Well, I can start. We met this week, and we talked about the rendering siding that we decided on. There was a decision on the windows that basically were what were in the best interest and suitable for the framework we were looking at, but also what was available to us, given all of the factors in manufacturing world. So we came up with some great solutions for that. And for airflow, et cetera. So I think everyone on the board was happy. We talked about our timeline again. We did some updates on that, just kind of moving things along. And one of the biggest meetings they had prior to our meeting was the phasing meeting, and talking about what phases would happen when, and kind of coming up with a plan of where students are going to be moved and teachers are going to be moved, and what that process kind of looks like, which we didn't really dive into too much as the building committee, but it was good for everyone on the committee to understand how much this renovation will impact what's happening in the school day and outside of the school day. We also talked about things like, and I'm saying this because I think you'd be interested in it, we talked about things about like where equipment's going to be stored on the property, having to move some bus storage around. Safety for students is certainly at the front there. So that would be my update as liaison from school committee, and Mary was there as well, and then I'll hand it to Dr. Carpenter for the details.
Sure, and in your packet there's a picture of the rendering, and I would say it will look from Crawl Road very much like the current building. There's only actually 2 spots that might stick out slightly different than the current building. If you look at the middle part in the diagram, there's some white paneling over the bump out that is the library. Currently, that is shingled up there, and there's a round window that is very difficult to go and appropriately seal around, so that round window will come out, and this sort of white paneling will go up in that place, and then to kind of mirror that on the backside, where there's a gable, There's a vent with shingles around it, and it will have that similar sort of white approach. But other than that, what you see in terms of, white trim coming across the windows will look very similar. It will just be, materials that will last for much longer than what the current, cedar shake, that's on there, and the white pine trim that's on there. So this will last for years, or for decades and decades to come. So no changes there. The pre-qualification process is sort of next in our timeline. So there are contractors who know that this job is coming up, and the part of this is they will be invited to be pre-qualified to bid on it. And at the meeting, we were hoping to enlist the support of some of the experts that we have on that building committee. So I'd like to thank Bob Stello and Lisa Norcross. Lisa is project manager with Eastward Construction, and Bob Stello has been with Stello Construction for a number of years. It's his company, or was his company. So they're going to be on evaluating these, the contractors that are going to want to bid on the job, with Michael and I, our owner's project manager, and the architects. So we'll come back in August, late August, to the building committee with the list of here are the contractors that are sort of qualified to bid. The bids will go out, and we will hope to have a contract awarded in September to the general contractor that would come in and do the job, with construction starting up in roughly April 1st of next year, give or take, depending on weather and when the windows actually arrive. And we also had, just prior to that building committee meeting, a good conversation with the middle school administration, our project manager, central office, on just a phasing plan on how to get from here to there, because about roughly 2/3 of the construction is going to be happening while classes are in session. But there is enough flexible room to go sort of shift zones of the building out at a time. We're going through sort of making sure that we weren't shifting too many classrooms out at any given time, because we need to, again, put that into the bid specs so that somebody knows that you're not just doing the whole building at once, but you need to go and approach it, and it's sort of the building's sort of divided in six zones. And there's also, because that building is used for Chatham Town Meeting, there's conversation about, okay, if the library's being done, here's the dates that, like, either you have to have it done before this, or you need to wait till after this date, so that we can make sure that the school is available for town meeting.
Any questions? All right. Moving right on to the superintendent's report.
Just some quick acknowledgements and recognitions. First, in terms of alumni news, Tucker McLean, a Monomoy Regional High School graduate, has been awarded a Fulbright scholarship after earning a BA in anthropology at St. Lawrence University and a master's degree from Northern Michigan University. Tucker applied for the selective Fulbright to study literature in Estonia, and he grew up in Chatham, graduated from our high school in 2016 in the school's second graduating class, and in an article in the Cape Cod Chronicle, he comments that he's especially grateful for the support of his teachers and educators along the way. He specifically remembered Rachel Barnes' 7th and 8th grade humanities classes. At the 4th of July parade this year in Chatham, Monomoy again was well represented. Class of 2025's valedictorian Lucy Bates was asked to be a parade judge. Rising senior Emery Hines performed the national anthem to start the parade, and both the high school track and field team and the Chatham Elementary School 3rd and 4th graders had floats in the parade. And then lastly, tomorrow, our high school is hosting the MLK Action Team, which is an organization with part of the Nauset Interfaith Associations. They'll be organizing, or they have organized, a Cape Cod, or an education for all Cape Cod educators to have a student, or have a conference that's really focused on diversity, equity, inclusion. So we're proud to offer our high school, this is, we've done this last year as well, but offer our high school and bring educators from across the Cape here to go and support, to support diversity in our schools.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have had the presentation of warrants, so just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, we will adjourn this meeting at 7:01 PM. Have a good night.